Hi, and welcome to another episode of Red Talks Live. Today, I have with me from IBM Cloud Distinguished Engineer of Cloud Automation, Simon Kofkin-Hansen. Simon, say hello to our listeners.
Hey there, how you doing? Thank you for having me here today.
Now, it's great to have you, Simon. You are one of the most traveled people I think I've met. We've been trying to find a time where we can both do this for a little while. What you working on at the moment?
So we're going around doing setting up accounts and doing migrations of actually workloads into the cloud platform, basically using the VMware stack as a base. So creating these hybrid clouds and connecting these cloud platforms onto the on-prem environment and looking at ways to speed up the movement of those on-premise workloads into the cloud.
So if I understand this right, you're a bit of an inventor, because there's nothing off the shelf that really provides a smooth platform that's easy to consume, is there? And someone's going to glue all that stuff together and make that frictionless adoption. That's pretty much what you bring to the table, right?
Well, trying to, through the use of eliminating the human involvement, doing things through automation, doing things through orchestration, taking a long background in history in this space and actually bringing it to being able to very quickly and easily establish a platform in the cloud, a standardized platform in the cloud that is supported by multiple vendors. We've been working with you guys at F5 and adding these additional components onto the platform, taking the experience of really what do enterprises really need or require in terms of automation, orchestration, and bundling it together in a highly scalable, repeatable process. So it's creating bundled together architectures of both hardware and software and solutions. So it's not leaving all the components just independent, but pulling them together as solutions to create these patterns of deployment. And that's what we go out and deploy.
That's cool. That's a word we're hearing more and more, patterns. So like reproducible, usable kind of efforts or flows. That's key to having something that's consumable by business. You shouldn't need everyone who's using the platform to know every single point and integration of what's going on under that platform. That's just not how you get customers. It's got to be frictionless, doesn't it? As frictionless as possible.
And quick. To be honest, it's all about speed. It's quick. I mean, the one thing the cloud gives everybody is speed to innovation, speed to scalability, being able to spin up virtual machines or entire platforms, spin up Docker containers, spin up VMs in multiple data centers in the world, and create applications or services through the interconnectivity of these different applications or servers, and offer these as client experiences to make this frictionless client experience we all talk about. I mean, the whole platform and the whole cloud is becoming very commodity based, and being able to stitch together solutions. I mean, you have a lot of storage, you have different forms of compute, you have different forms of networking, yeah? But being able to come up with prescribed ways that these elements are put together to achieve an overall service or outcome is primarily what our clients want. And the speed to be able to do that is only achieved through automation. Bringing the human element, I mean, humans have to invent the process, humans have to define the process, but the real only true way we can pull this together is automation. But not only automation just at the infrastructure level, automation at the solution level, tying together different elements, different services to come up with your cloud implementation.
That's awesome. You are preaching to the converted here. I think that might be all I really do is talk about exactly those things with customers myself. So I've got a couple of questions for you. I sat down and thought about kind of what you do and what you guys at IBM are doing, both with F5's technology and others. And it got me thinking about this migration, this process of getting to cloud, and not just going to cloud, but just how business and everything is changing, and how we haven't gone like all one or all the other. Really, hybrid cloud is what's really the more popular model that's coming along. So, I mean, of this operating model, like how does hybrid cloud differ from traditional or even pure public cloud? What can you talk about that?
It's the merger of both. I mean, You're right. We haven't seen any true fully cloud implementations where it's just purely everything in the cloud, or companies, because clients, all these clients have existing data center constructs, or they have existing infrastructures or shared infrastructures where they've been running everything today. So the first part in this journey is actually deciding where to move that workload, land that workload, but there's always a tie back to where they were on premise. So hybrid cloud is the norm. I mean, that's what everybody wants. That's what everyone gets and needs. But it moves more from, when we look at the operating model around hybrid clouds, a cloud is just another data center, quite honestly. It's just another data center. It brings together services and features and functions within that data center, but it's essentially another data center. How to manage those data centers is a combination of using available cloud services, other new features and functions, new data sets that you can apply to your service in the cloud, from the cloud. So we look at Watson, we look at IoT, we look at some of the other analytic engines, the Google Analytics engine, and tying all these together services with your application in the cloud. Managing those services is a combination of actually bringing your on-premise management tool set and actually applying it to your cloud infrastructure. So it's this hybrid operating model that no one has a fully clear path. Everybody is still trying to work it out and figure out what is the best percentage for bringing your management, your cloud management tooling and infrastructure. At what point do you cut it over as you migrate these workloads? It's all about shifting the entire workload base that exists in on-prem, moving that into the cloud, and figuring out how you rationalize, how you reformat and recreate the applications using the new available cloud services.
That's interesting. A couple of things that you said there kind of got me thinking. So you talked about tooling and how you're managing the deployment of application services, or even the ongoing running of applications and services. So if I've got my own private infrastructure and I've got a way I've been doing things and a tool set I've been using, and I have expertise and skills in that, should I be trying to kind of reuse that same tooling in my cloud platform that I'm adopting if I've gone an infrastructure as cloud model, or should I use this as an opportunity to reevaluate and find a set of tooling that I can use in both?
The way we're seeing most clients adopt this, and the way we adopt this scenario, is looking at their existing tool set and seeing how much of their existing tool set can they use to manage the cloud operations. So having things like a standard platform, the VMware base, it's fairly straightforward for people to actually take what they're doing today on premise and reapplying those facilities in the cloud. F5, whether it be for networking, looking at Cisco, looking at the F5 and then F5 network appliances, taking the same operating or networking models, but extending those networks and those network functions just into the cloud base. But the way you operate that gear, it's the same. And if you look at across the spectrum, all the vendors have these appliance type models and have these mechanisms of extending their on-premise tool base out into the cloud to help manage the infrastructure. I mean, every vendor's got that. So it's using the existing tool base, existing mechanisms, and stretching it into the cloud, and then looking at the cloud to see which are the hardest services to move. Backup, if you look at backup and DR, those are the hardest services to move. So basically just establishing the new service for those functions in the cloud and leveraging a lot of that existing on-prem tooling to manage other functions.
And that, you mentioned F5 there. I'm slightly biased. I work for F5. And something I keep hearing a lot when I talk to people about cloud is that they want to go to cloud. They want to move services to the cloud. They've got a team. It's a finite team. It's working very hard. They don't have resources to expand that team or budget to expand that team. So the problem they encounter is then when they try and move to a cloud provider, they're like, well, hang on, I've got all this expertise and now I have to increase my range of expertise because they use this other technology. Whereas, and what you guys have, I mean, you're using F5 technology in IBM Cloud. So the people that already have that are like, well, okay, well, I know what level of experience of what user experience or administrative experience to expect because it's common. It's got, I'm familiar and comfortable with that reliability. and I know that that's out there in the cloud as well. My team's now not having to go and do a complete review of everything and understand, oh, what are you using, and how does governance work around that, and how do you fail over, and this whole new thing to manage. I mean, it's not just the click of a button that I think the internet wants you to believe that cloud is. There's new tooling and new administrative interfaces to learn as well.
Yeah. Well, I believe, I mean, most vendors are realizing as you go through this cloud journey that they have to make the user experience easier. People have got a lot of fear for cloud. All that cloud provides is reusable, repeatable automation and the availability of service from many different other vendors from the entire world. I mean, we've got this thing called the internet. You just publish your service on the internet as an API or as whatever, and you can pick up and utilize it. I mean, that's essentially what cloud is. But providing the ability, the quick ability to integrate these services, to stand up these services, and make this plethora of services that all these vendors around the world provide is what clients want and what need. And the speed at which those services turn on and turn off. Everybody forgets turning the service off. We've got to make it just as easy to turn the service off as on for our clients. And if you give them the functions and the feature sets that they're used to on-premise, give the same functions and feature sets that they use, but do it in a cloud format, using the cloud economics, the scalability function and that, it makes the transition for them a lot easier because they mix the old tools and their knowledge of the old tools and look at all the new services that are available to them and look at how they can integrate those new services with their existing tool sets. So it's all hybrid cloud operations, hybrid cloud applications, a bundle of automation and orchestration, because, yeah, we can't do all this ourselves. Physically, humans can't stand up these services ourselves. So the whole automation and orchestration brings this whole cloud thing together.
I think that's really key what you were saying there about actually not expecting customers to just totally abandon what they know. There's got to be some level of familiarity of how things work. I mean, you can create this great new platform, but if there's an operational resistance to going to it because there's so different from what they're familiar with for their processes or the way that they have been doing things, then it's going to be really difficult for them to start migrating. It's going to take decades if that's the way that it has to be done.
And app transformation is in that bandwagon. If you look at the whole cloud legacy or cloud-enabled versus cloud-native applications, the whole cloud-native bandwagon, companies have realized how hard it is to actually containerize everything or do their complete application transformation. It takes a lot longer and a little more money than previously expected. So we're moving into this more hybrid application type delivery model, where people are mixing together the old traditional virtual machines, used mainly as backends, but bringing in and mixing in containers, containing application services and containing web services and containing a multitude of other services, but stitching them together with containers and VMware and VMs all in the mix.
That is something I'm really interested in at the moment, and I try not to throw in new acronyms on these talks, but I'm going to today. The SPA, the single page application, that trend. I mean, yes, people have been doing it. You know, some people for about 10 years, but for large enterprise, it's kind of newer. It's just starting to make momentum now, but the single page app kind of eliminated that middle tier. There isn't the middle tier anymore. The app itself is off getting the initial page load, and then it's like, oh, inside that page, there might be some Angular JS app that tells it, you need to go and talk to that API now to get this data stream, and to that API to get the authentication, and then talk to this API when you want to actually go and do a processing. So the app itself knows I'm going to those containers, I'm going to that private resource in this data center here, and I might talk off to that authentication service in a totally different PaaS system somewhere else. So we don't have these kind of easy to think about kind of concepts of straight lines of applications anymore. It's distributed, and that's the hybrid app across the hybrid cloud model, isn't it? That's what you're talking about there?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. All it is us mixing services together. It's a mixture of services all brought together and being pulled together. PaaS has made this very easy, with the whole PaaS revolution and how all these microservices are joined together. That made it very, very simple. And with all the advancements behind PaaS, with all the IoT vendors, the AI, bringing in all this, the data processing capabilities. This has all made it much easier to compress data, send data sets off to get crunched or, looked at, identified, and being able to make new services off how we're processing this data. It's all become services upon services upon services, and you're just stitching services together, whether it be at an infrastructure level for traditional IT, traditional architects infrastructure, or whether it be at a developer level who's stitching the services together at an application level, or whether it be the business who's combining a series of marketing, online, product level decisions. Their products are combining and consist of a bunch of different services. So it's services supporting services supporting services, and just being able to quickly instantiate them.
It's no accident that you've mentioned automation at least, I think, 4 or 5 times so far, because when you distributed application and services talking to services and all those things. In fact, I think, is there more traffic now on the internet that's server to server than there is human to server? Like, how do you manage all that without automation? Impossible.
Impossible. Exactly. The whole idea is to make our lives simpler and easier, but as we actually get more and more complex and try to do more and more things simpler, it's actually quite difficult to make something simple. When we look at, particularly in IT, if we look at orchestration and automation, all we're trying to achieve with orchestration and automation is to make things simple. That's it.
Reproducible processes that don't involve things like me just having one coffee too few and just making one little typo and, oh, there we have an outage. I mean, we don't want that. I love automation. As long as there's a process of continuous improvement wrapped around that automation, constant review, systems thinking instead of project-oriented thinking. That's really the tipping point there, isn't it? It's that cultural shift of, I don't manage each project as they're assigned to me anymore. I manage the system that projects deploy on. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, correct. It's not project by modes, it's systemic. So it's a whole systemic way of thinking, which is why we publish the services. Because to do the automation that we've developed as part of this VMware and IBM Cloud service, if each individual team or project had to do it, it would take them years, and it would never ever match up to the level, the speed, the maturity of the service, which is why everybody wants to run things as a service, because it's the continuous improvement, the continuous updates, the 6-week release cycles, the feature, the new functions. That's why we do things as a service, which is, it's interesting times to be in. It's exciting to see how these all new products and how everything we've been talking about for a while is actually coming to fruition.
That's really cool stuff. Now, I'm dying to know, because you travel the world and talk to so many customers. You have a wealth of knowledge, but I know what it's like when you're put on the spot, like I'm going to do right now. Is there like a top 1 or even 2 or 3 kind of things to look out for if you're an organization starting on this journey? And I'm going to help you out with the first one while you have a moment to think about it, which is clearly you need to adopt systems thinking and automate processes. You can't move manual processes to a cloud and expect things to be drastically different. You're just moving the problem to somewhere else. You need to operationally readdress what's going on and how you've been doing things. And I think a migration or a modernization of an app, the way it's been architected, is a great opportunity to start doing that. Yes, you might be supporting legacy apps as well, but don't bring the legacy thinking to this new opportunity of a new platform of distributed services. I think so. That one you've talked about already quite a bit, which is awesome. I think that alone is a really big takeaway for our listeners. Is there anything else we might be able to share today?
So on that is also do the app modernization once the workload has hit the cloud. A lot of things that people have actually started, what people have started thinking and doing and seeing is how long it takes to actually get ready to move an app to the cloud. We're starting to see a lot of thinking out there in the market, and a prescribed approach, which is agile, which is fail fast. Move the workload to the cloud. Once it's sitting on the cloud, figure out, okay, how am I going to modernize this app? What services from the cloud can I use on this particular application? Don't wait to build it. Don't use the analogy, if you build it, they will come. Don't do it. Move the app one at a time and reconnect and figure it out as you build it up. you're only going to get your true factual data by trying something, failing, figuring out where you went wrong, and trying again. It's the fastest way to delivery, even leveraging automation. The fastest way to delivery is you've got to keep trying. You've got to try your cycle, put a solution together. If it doesn't work, great. Where did it go wrong? Fix where it went wrong. Try again. But don't spend all this time in analysis paralysis up front. Really just try something, and you'll be far smarter for trying it than doing all this paperwork up front.
I think that's excellent advice, and something I preach myself. And in case people are out there thinking that means suddenly it's okay to deliver a lesser service, I just want to make sure people understand that with this philosophy of systems thinking and more changes more often, instead of once every 3 months or 6 months a massive build goes out and we all cross our fingers. When you're doing the more agile development and continuous deployment with continuous improvement baked in, it's smaller changes going on more frequently. So I can deploy quicker, but it might be just one small thing actually that I didn't pick up in my continuous integration testing, and I can actually just edit that, change it forward. But my next step is to then work on the continuous integration. Why did that miss? How can I make that never miss again? So therefore, we're improving all the time. So it's not like we're saying, go ahead and do these monolithic 6-month deployments and be okay with it being a total failure. It's a total different way of architecting and deploying applications.
It's actually architecting and deploying at the same time. So while you're doing things on the whiteboard, turn around to your console and deploy the cloud service. Test it. What did your hypothesis work? Yeah, come back, talk to your other people. You can have other people deploying other parts of the service, and actually architecting, designing on the fly, connecting on the fly by taking real data. Yeah, rather than working on spreadsheets, trying to map IP segments and network maps to it. Actually pull the data from what you've actually deployed and use that as the valid inputs into your next script to run. And if you do a scripted automated approach, it's the same thing every single time to integrate these products. There's not too many ways to integrate services together. It's the same approach. There's some authentication mechanism, and you're pulling all the data together. So it's the same approach with every service. It's just the method or mechanism might be slightly different. But it should be very, very, very easy to connect these services.
Simon, really appreciate having you on. I mean, your insight is awesome. You've seen probably more migrations in a week than most people get to see in a career. I hope I can have you on again sometime, actually, in the future. I've got to confess to our listeners, Simon and I agreed at the start that we should probably set a timer. Otherwise, we may talk right through till Monday. So it'd be great next time you're not traveling, Simon, if we can have you back on. Maybe I can get a public commit out of you on this one.
All right, I'd love to come back. Give me a couple of months. I'm entering a pretty hectic deployment phase as we run to the end of the year and through first quarter. But I'd love to get back with you in the new year and give you an update on what we're seeing around migrations and what's actually going on, how much workload is actually moving out there.
That'd be really cool, Simon. Greatly appreciate it. So thanks again. You've been listening to REDtalks.live. Simon, thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot, man. Take it easy.
Greatly appreciated. Thanks for listening.